All right, what's going on, guys? Mackenzie Long here. So today we are talking about financial freedom, the step-by-step guide, and we're walking through the How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker 7 money milestones, and we have come to the last one, number 7, protecting your wealth. Now, the reason why I love this book, How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, is because I think it's great for people no matter where they're at in their life. It gives you a great understanding of the milestones that you may or may not have completed and the ones that you would still need to complete to know that you're actually on your way or that you've completed all the money milestones, which is really helpful because I think a lot of people are very confused about money. I've been doing this for over 9 years, and most people have no idea where they're at and where they're trying to go and what they need to do in that process. And this is a literal step-by-step guide, and we have done these videos in a playlist so that you can kind of have somebody walk you through them. Now, it's not going to replace the book because there's lots of concepts that we couldn't really cover from the book that you're still going to want to get the book. So if you want to get the book, you can order it on Amazon. It's between 17 and 26 bucks depending on the specials that they have going on. Or if you want, we are doing a book to up event where we spent over $50,000 on financial literacy resources, and we are going to be giving those resources away. It's not a YouTube giveaway or you give us a bunch of information, we pick one person that we're going to give some stuff away to. There is a MailChimp link down below that you can fill out that we will reach out to you first via email. If we can't get a hold of you via email, we will reach out to you and actually call you. That way we can get the details of sending you some of these resources. And the reason for that is because these things have been so helpful in my life, with my clients, with our agents, that it really gives a guideline of where you're at and what to do next. And I think that that's so helpful in somebody's life. It has been the #1 best-selling book for the last 2 years since we released it. It's also been, we've been using it to talk to schools and businesses and churches and individuals, and people are falling in love with it. And that's why I think it's become the #1 best-selling personal finance book. So I highly, highly recommend it. And then these videos are to help kind of supplement and go with them so you have an understanding of what it's talking about. Sometimes people are more auditory or visual learners, so maybe these videos will be helpful for you as well. But make sure you fill out that link too. And today we're going to be covering specifically number 7, which is protecting your assets. And now some people might think, well, it's number 7, or maybe that means that it's the least important, or maybe something that I should do later. And that may not necessarily be the case. It might be something that you do actually towards the beginning of your money milestones. However, it will help you at the end. And so I think that's why it's actually money milestone number 7, is it's not necessarily the order to complete them, the 7 money milestones, but it's these 7 things that we need to make sure are completed so that we do finish the journey. And the reason why I say that is because there have been lots of people who have not done it. And we're going to use some more famous examples, but if you think about everyday people, this is happening all of the time, and it can be very costly when we don't have these things set up for our family because of the things that are happening that I'll help explain here in a little bit. But let's use a little bit bigger example so that way you can understand a little bit more of what's going on. You might say, well, I don't have millions or billions of dollars, so do I really need to put some of these things in place? And my answer to that would probably be, yeah, you still need to make sure that these things are in place, and we'll go over why that is. So there have been some famous people not even that long ago that have passed away who did not have these things set up, and it creates a nightmare for the people that are left behind. Some famous people that you would probably know, maybe Prince or Aretha Franklin, or maybe if you're not quite that generation, you would know Chadwick Boseman. He was the one who did Black Panther, or I love the movie 42 as well, when the baseball movie. And so he's done some great movies, and you would think that people like that would have these things set up, and they don't. And what that means for the family is that those things that they had accumulated over their life, somebody else is going to make the decision of what happens then. Because what's going to happen after we pass away is somebody's got to decide what to do with our stuff. And we oftentimes have verbal agreements about what we're going to do. I don't know about in your particular circle, but we do like godparents where we say, hey, I want to baptize my kid, and you're going to be the godparent. So if anything happens to them, you will be the ones that take care of them. However, we might have had that verbal verbal communication, but the state doesn't know that, the government doesn't know that. So even though they could petition to take care of our kids, there's nothing written down that the government can go off of, so they can't just take that person's word for it, right? And this happens in a bunch of different areas in our life that we'll talk about today. So who actually ends up taking care of our minor kids? Who actually ends up taking care of our assets? You would think that the house would automatically just go to the kids, but what if the kids aren't old enough to take care of these things? Who has access to our bank accounts and all of the things that we're doing? Who continues to pay the bills on the house if it's in our name? So there's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes once we're gone that people oftentimes don't think about. And the famous people I just mentioned, same thing. Now, for them, obviously a little bit different, because could you imagine being related to Prince and maybe you were at his house one time and he said, yeah, I want you to have this particular thing, or I want to make sure my mom gets these awards and these things that I have in my house. Now, when the government comes in and takes care of it, do you think that they are going to do the same care that you would do or that they would do? Obviously not. So what they're going to come in and do is usually liquidate everything and then divide up the money equally. Now, a lot of times it might not even be the money that's the concern. It might have been he wanted to leave that house to his mom, or maybe these records and these things that he had accomplished, or his magazine articles, whatever, he wanted to leave those to his aunt, right? And so that is what you're going to be setting up, is what happens to all of these things when I'm gone. And having it actually written down makes it so much easier for everybody else. And I've experienced both sides. I've had friends and family who have passed away who have nothing in place, and everybody's kind of scrambling and just grabbing things, and it's an absolute nightmare. And then when my grandma passed away, she had all of this stuff set up in her trust and in her will, and so everybody knew exactly what to do, what they were getting, who was taking care of what. And that's what we're talking about today, is how do we set up all those things, or what do we need to set up so that it can be a simple process. And what I mean by simple is that there will still be grieving and there's still going to be challenges associated with it, but you can clear up the vast majority of that. So you go, hey, this is the person that's in charge, these are where these things are going, everything else they can figure out what to do with for themselves. But it makes a world of difference that people can actually grieve versus trying to figure these things out for themselves. So let's talk about the main 4 documents that you're going to want to make sure that you have. The first one is going to be a will. Now, the will is going to take care of things like minor guardianship, who is going to actually take care of your kids, what's going to happen with your properties, and who's going to be in charge of deciding and telling who gets what. So that's important to have set up as well. And don't forget about power of attorney. Now, there's a couple different power of attorneys, but basically what it's going to be doing is putting those people in charge that they can access the things they need to access, but that they can also act on your behalf. And what that means is, well, let's say you become incognitive and you don't necessarily even pass away, but what happens? Who can help take care of paying your bills? Who can help take care of the medical bills and make sure you get your prescriptions and do all those things and have access to your funds so that they can pay for those things and they're not having to come out of pocket for it? So who's going to take care of those things? That's going to be your power of attorney. Now, number 3 is going to be your healthcare directives. And these are going to be the people that you want to make your healthcare decisions if for some reason that you can't. Who decides who's going to pull the plug? There may be people in your life you don't want making that decision, so you should probably figure out who you want to make that decision, because they're going to make the best decision, or at least the decision in your best interest instead of their best interest. So it's important to figure those things out and letting that person know and having these conversations of who's actually going to handle that. And number 4 is you're going to want to make sure that they have your HIPAA release forms, that they have access and they can get access to any medical information that they need, that way the doctor can talk to them and give them your personal information. And you can also go back and request personal information if needed, because you might need to go to an old doctor and get their information and take it to the new doctor. Now, you can't do that because they can't release that information to you without that HIPAA form. And obviously it's going to be hard to have that HIPAA form signed if you're not able to do that. So you need to make sure that you do that beforehand so that those documents and those things can flow freely, that the new doctor can get whatever information they need. Now, all of those things can really be done without a trust, but a trust is going to include all of these things. It's also going to include things like property management. Who do you want your houses or your real estate assets to go to. The trust is also going to help with minor children and the capacity that they are not able to handle money. So oftentimes those resources will funnel into the trust, which is going to allow those kids to be taken care of, because oftentimes, if we don't have these things in place, again, we might have designated who their godparents are, but that's not a legal document. We would expect that if we left these things to these kids, then that godparent is going to take care of them. But they might not necessarily do that if the court system gets involved, and the wrong people might be fighting for the kids simply because there's assets attached to it. We've all seen the movies. It kind of actually happens like that. It's really interesting to see. Certain people will want to take care of the kids who you might not want to take care of the kids simply because there's assets involved. And what this is going to do is allow those kids to still be taken care of with the assets through the trust. This is especially important for special needs children, that they can still continue to get the care that they need, because the government might stop paying benefits because it's generally through the parent. But having the trust allows that to still be paid for that individual, for the kids who might have some kind of special needs. It's also going to allow you to avoid probate in many states. And what that basically means is the government coming in and figuring out where these things are supposed to go. The challenge with that is A, it's really expensive, B, it's really time consuming. It can take years. So imagine you have real estate assets, those things are not being maintained, nobody has access to be able to keep the bills up on those things, so now there's collection notices going. So it can just create a whole nightmare not having these things in place, whereas we can avoid all of that going into probate if we actually designate where things are supposed to go. And it will also help you lower your estate taxes. So it's different for every state, but here in Nevada, if you're planning on leaving over $20,000 in assets, and that's going to be everything combined and assessed, then you are going to end up in probate. So it's important to have that actually documented and in your trust so that those things can be passed freely without the need of probate, which will then also lower a lot of the taxable consequences with transferring those assets. And as we go back and we talk about Prince and Aretha Franklin and these people who have had these kinds of issues, it's not just celebrities and famous people that need these things. This is something that almost everybody is going to need through the course of their life. So again, just because it's number 7 doesn't mean you should put these things off till later, because we never really know what's going to happen. It's not really expensive to do some of these things, and if you go through a financial professional, they can oftentimes send you to the right area, because sitting down with a probate attorney, it's generally going to start about $2,500, but generally that's only needed if it's fairly complex. There's oftentimes other resources that your financial professional will have for you that might be $500, $600, $700, $800 that you can get what you need to cover you where you're at, and then adjust those things later once things get more complicated. So you might already find yourself in this situation where you're starting this book, but you might need to get number 7 done earlier than some of the others, simply because you already are in that category where you need a will and trust. And so I hope this was helpful for you. Don't forget to smash the like button and also hit the subscribe as well. We've got some great things coming up. Don't forget to get registered for that $50,000 giveaway of financial literacy resources so you can get your book and some of the other cool things that we have coming out. You can do that through the MailChimp link down below. Just fill that out and we will reach out to you. And we've got some great content coming out as well. So hit that little bell. We've got a new video coming out every day at 1 o'clock, and everything related to maybe starting a YouTube channel, to business, to finances, to biblical principles around money, and how to do all of these things and taking care of your faith life, your family life, your finances, your fitness, and how to have fun through the process as well. So if any of those things relate to you or pertain to where you're going in your life, I'd love to come on this journey with you. And by hitting that bell, we'll be able to do this together. I would also love to hear some comments, anything that you guys have to say about this or other things that you would like to hear about. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will catch you later. Bye.